Montana is located in the western part of Montana. Population in the metropolitan area is approximately 60,000. While our pedestrian accident statistics seem to fall within national figures, because our population is so low, we have a real problem.
The City of Missoula is proud to present an oral report, and hopefully different than what you've seen before, a video report of our pedestrian demonstration project.
The main thrust of the pedestrian demonstration project was to integrate a pedestrian program into our community's traffic safety program, which will guide future responses to problems and opportunities identified annually. This project consists of 3 elements: engineering, education, and enforcement. Specifically, updating the master sidewalk plan was a priority, and a student intern was involved. The research involved in preparing the criteria for completion of the master sidewalk plan for Missoula could best be gathered by working through a study area. The area we selected for analysis is bounded on the north by Mount, the west by Russell, on the east by Bancroft, and the south by South Avenue. All of these streets are main thoroughfares. Land use in the study area is primarily that of retail stores, encased by strip malls with food stores serving as anchors. Pockets of single-family and multifamily residences are also located within the study area. Several mid-sized professional buildings are located along the east boundary of the study area. While in most instances the residential areas are separated from the commercial areas by a service buffer, some places the residential units do abut commercial land uses.
In addition, a senior citizens residential complex is located within the study boundary. This is a multiplex unit which generates many pedestrian walking trips within the neighborhood. The Missoula Manor also proved to be a valuable community contact.
The pedestrian circulation problems in the area can be exemplified by the discontinuous system. The area was built around Highway 93, which bisects the study area and can act as a difficult barrier for pedestrians to cross. No sidewalks exist on Highway 93. This situation makes movement difficult. The circulation problems can also be exemplified by the pedestrian accident history of the area. Over the past 5 years, nearly 11% of pedestrian accidents in Missoula have occurred within this study area. This suggests that the area has a history of pedestrian safety problems. The Brooks and Stevens intersection was the site of the pedestrian volume behavior study. The purpose of the pedestrian volume behavior study was twofold. First, we wanted to determine the number of pedestrians crossing the street at a particular period. We also wanted to make observations about the pedestrians' intersection behavior. The intent was to determine who crosses the intersection of Brooks and Stevens and what types of behavior they exhibited when doing so. By finding this information, we can better determine who the pedestrians are in the area and how well they can manipulate the intersection. The procedure used in this study was that of making direct visual observations at an observable point. That is, a pedestrian observer was stationed at a location that allowed them full view of the Brooks-Stevens intersection. As each pedestrian approached the intersection, the observer recorded general personal characteristics about the pedestrian. Specifically, we noted the gender, estimated age group, and whether or not the pedestrian had an observable handicap. In addition, we observed the pedestrian for their general safety practices, whether the walker used the pedestrian crossing device, whether they crossed the street with the walk light, and if they made it across the street before the light changed, were all behavioral safety practices that the observer recorded. In this study, we did not think to observe the length of time a pedestrian has to wait to get the walk signal. This man waited 1.15 minutes. Not everyone was as patient as this gentleman. We counted only those pedestrians who actually crossed through the intersection. Jaywalkers, those who crossed either Brooks or Stevens at a location other than an intersection, were noted only for their presence. We did not record any other information about their behavior. Overall, nearly 24% of all the street crossings were made by jaywalkers. More than 60% of the pedestrians crossing at the Brooks-Stevens intersection were adults, ages 18 to 40. And over 65% of the pedestrians were male. Nearly all the pedestrians who crossed the Brooks-Stevens intersection did not have an observable handicap. 1/3 of the total observed pedestrians did not make use of the crossing device. Those who did not make use of the crossing device most often were the pedestrians in the 41 to 64 age group. 69% of the observed pedestrians waited to cross the street with the walk sign. Signal timing at this intersection was not a problem for pedestrians. Nearly all of the observed pedestrians who crossed the Brooks-Stevens intersection were able to make it across the street before the light changed from green to yellow.
We have been having a very extensive engineering section where Lisa Wolcon worked with our master sidewalk plan and came up with a functional classification of sidewalks, and she'll be introducing that.
My name is Lisa Wolcon, and I was hired as the pedestrian intern for the Pedestrian Demonstration Grant in Missoula, Montana. I am a graduate student in geography at the University of Montana, and I chose to do this project as part of a research project at school. I worked primarily with the engineering department at the city of Missoula. My responsibility was to come up with a method for completing the master sidewalk plan for the city. The best way we thought to do that would be to create a map where we could divide the city's sidewalks up into segments or categories. By dividing the city up into categories, we could better delimit which sidewalks were more frequently used by pedestrians. And this map represents those categories. We divided up the city into 4 categories based on the movement of pedestrians within the regions of the city. These 4 categories reflect a way to give priority to regions within the city, and these priorities would be used by the engineering department to order in repairs and actually order in new sidewalk installations for the city. Previously, the method for evaluating sidewalks was very haphazard. It was spur of the moment. It was much more subjective. By focusing in on the map, the engineering department can use the map to help them determine more objectively where to order in sidewalks. By using this map, the engineering department can quickly assess which area in the city has more pedestrians or more expected pedestrians than other areas. And they can use this to help them determine, well, where is it most important to have sidewalk repairs and sidewalk installations made. The way in which this map or model was created was through a twofold procedure. The first was to divide up the city into functional classification of sidewalks. That's represented by the 4 colors listed here. We decided that the most logical way to determine these classification zones was to look at the zoning currently in place in Missoula. We use the zoning as a foundation to look at which types of land use are represented along the sidewalks. Land use is a large factor in helping to determine the number of pedestrians expected flowing across a sidewalk area. Zone 1, which is the yellow color, is our highest classification category. Zone 1 contains schools, high amenity parks, and those areas which we feel would draw a lot of pedestrians. The second priority category is Zone 2, which is orange on the map. Orange represents more commercial areas, fast food restaurants, commercial strips, and specialty retailing stores. These are areas where we will expect numerous pedestrians to be walking on the sidewalks and using that area, those sidewalks, moving from store to store. In Zone 2, we have found that these areas lack sidewalks in Missoula. Zone 2 typically straddles a lot of the major road networks through Missoula, and some of these areas do not have any means for pedestrian movement at all. Zone 3, which is shown in the purple, contains those areas of low amenity parks and multifamily residential areas. These areas we would expect to have fewer pedestrian movement than in the higher classification categories. And finally, Zone 4, which is the green, is primarily residential areas. And this would have the fewest amount of pedestrian traffic. In addition to the functional classification of sidewalks in Missoula, all of the cities are being assessed based on their physical and safety conditions. This assessment is done on the ownership level. Representatives from the engineering department will be out inventorying all of the sidewalks in all of the zones in the city. The information which we'll collect on these sidewalks will be tabulated on inventory forms and submitted to the engineering department. Some of the criteria we will be looking for on these sidewalks is the safety factors of the sidewalk and the physical condition of the sidewalk. All of these variables are rated and given a numeric value.
Let's go back to our study area to see how this criteria can be applied to the sidewalks that lead to the Brooks-Stevens intersection. We have sidewalks with curb in the study area, but a discontinuous system across the street. In the sidewalk inventory assessment, this would be classified no sidewalk with curb. Another type of sidewalk is a sidewalk without a curb. The sidewalk inventory will also note vertical and horizontal displacement of the sidewalk, spalding and cracking. The inventory will also record the last type of sidewalk, which is actually no sidewalk and no curb.
We have Lonnie Parsons, who's Executive Director of the Missoula Traffic Safety Task Force, who worked very carefully with me on several projects and doing public information, and she has some information about our Safety in the Streets project.
Hello, my name is Lonnie Parson, and I'm coordinator of the Missoula Traffic Safety Task Force. One of the criteria for being awarded the Pedestrian Safety Grant was that a task force needed to be in place. We have had a traffic safety task force, a very active one in Missoula now for a number of years. My main involvement with this Pedestrian Safety Grant was participating in planning and carrying out a month-long Safety in the Streets campaign, which we held in May of 1991. During that month, we focused on all aspects of traffic safety, beginning with drinking and driving issues. We tied it in with National Bicycle Safety Awareness, which is held during the month of May. We pulled in the Buckle Up America campaign, which is also a national event. And it so happened that National Safe Kids Awareness happens in that month, so we focused on child safety issues. And we finished out with what we called Defensive Driving Awareness Week and held a defensive driving course, which was offered to the public at no charge. We received a lot of awareness by purchasing a Safety in the Streets banner, which we put across one of our busier streets in Missoula. And our plan is that as in future years, we will continue to hold a Safety Awareness Month each year here in Missoula. Each year, the Traffic Safety Task Force sponsors an informational booth at our county fair. We took advantage of that this year to distribute information about pedestrian safety, especially safety for the elderly and alcohol impaired, which was the focus of our grant program. We handed out flyers about visibility, the importance of being seen by drivers, especially at night, and handed out hot dots for elderly people to place on their shoes and outer clothing. We also gave information about the incidents of drunk driving related accidents involving pedestrians and really tried to bring it to the attention of our community what risk the elderly and alcohol impaired pedestrian is at.
Bill Dicus of the Missoula Police Department is going to be able to share with us the enforcement segment of the grant, and how indeed we had some special enforcement that addressed pedestrian concerns.
My name is Bill Dykus. I'm a sergeant with the Missoula Police Department, and I'm in charge of the traffic unit for the police department. Recently, over the last few months, beginning last May, the police department participated in a pedestrian grant. It was largely an educational effort, although we did issue a number of citations, but we made 4 times as many contacts with the public, which was really the object of our portion of the grant. By that I mean last May, we, in conjunction with the university, began to work the crosswalks on Arthur Avenue. We were looking for vehicles that failed to yield to pedestrians, pedestrians that really failed to yield to vehicles, and we had 2 or 3 of those. Bicyclists riding the wrong way, running stop signs, riding on sidewalks. That was a pretty successful effort. I think we made well over 100 contacts, and I'll bet we issued 45 or 50 citations. We gave this another try in October. We concentrated generally in the same area with just about the same result. Now, this past week in December, our focus was downtown. We had officers walking. Largely an educational effort. We stopped and visited with a number of pedestrians who were jaywalking, crossing against the light, bicyclists riding on sidewalks. So generally it was the same effort, and I would say the totals are probably well over 200 contacts with probably close to 70 or 80 citations.
Research has shown that sidewalks help reduce pedestrian accidents. They provide a separate space for pedestrians with a physical and psychological separation from vehicles. Maintaining and installing sidewalks is an important and useful engineering technique for increasing pedestrian safety. When coupled with public education, targeting the at-risk population, the elderly, and adding support from local law enforcement with a commitment to maintaining pedestrian rights, our community and other communities can be effective in reducing pedestrian risks, deaths, and injuries.